The mining station floated like a forgotten shadow at the edge of known space. It was a place for workers who wanted credits more than comfort, a home to people who were used to dust, noise, and hard labor. Ships came and went carrying ore and fuel, but few carried stories worth remembering. That changed the day they found her. Mark was the first to see the small escape pod drifting toward the docking bay. He was an engineer, someone who fixed broken machines and patched worn-out equipment. He was used to things falling apart, but this was different. The pod was old and scorched, as if it had barely survived an attack. When the retrieval arm brought it inside, the workers gathered, curious and impatient. The hatch was pried open and out of the smoke came something no one expected, a small figure curled in on itself, thin and trembling. It was a girl. Not human. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer, like moonlight on water. Thin ridges traced the sides of her neck, and her eyes were wide, glowing faintly with a color that shifted between silver and green. She looked young, but her clothes were torn and stained, and she held herself like someone who had seen too much. She did not speak. She only stared at the ground as if expecting a blow. The crew reacted in the way many rough workers did when faced with something unknown. Some were curious, others wary, and a few were openly hostile. "She's trouble," someone muttered. "Pirates dump things like that. Could be bait." Another worker said she looked weak and useless. Their voices rose and overlapped, a mix of suspicion and irritation. The station manager shrugged. "We can't keep her. We're not a rescue ship. Find out if she's hurt, then drop her off at the next patrol outpost." Mark stayed quiet. He saw what the others did not. The girl's shoulders were shaking, though she tried to hide it. Her hands were cut and bruised, and her left ankle looked swollen. When one of the men moved too quickly, she flinched as if she expected pain. Mark felt something twist inside him. Machines did not flinch. They did not cower. But this girl did. And that meant someone, somewhere, had taught her to fear. While the others argued about what to do, Mark stepped forward. "She's hurt," he said. "At least let me check her ankle." The girl's head snapped up, eyes wide. She pressed back against the wall of the pod, breathing fast. Mark stopped where he was and crouched down, keeping his hands open and away from her. His voice was calm. "I'm not going to hurt you. I fix things. That's all." He pointed to his tool belt, showing the harmless collection of wrenches and scanners. Slowly, the tension in her frame eased, though she did not move closer. The manager waved a hand. "Fine. Do what you want. But she's not staying. We've got work to do." The crowd broke apart, some muttering that Mark was wasting his time. Soon the hangar was quiet again except for the hum of machines and the faint hiss of cooling metal. Mark found a blanket in the supply locker and approached carefully. The girl watched him with sharp, wary eyes. He stopped a few steps away and placed the blanket on the floor. "Cold out here," he said softly. "You can use it if you want." She hesitated but did not refuse. When he stepped back, she slowly reached for it and pulled it around her thin frame. Mark worked quickly, scanning her ankle and checking for injuries. She winced when he touched the swollen joint but did not pull away. The scanner showed a sprain, nothing broken. "You'll need to rest," he said, though he doubted she understood his words. Still, he spoke gently, like he would to a scared animal. She seemed to sense his tone more than his language. When he offered a bottle of water, she hesitated again before taking it. Her hands shook, but she drank deeply. Mark noticed she avoided looking directly at him. Every sound in the hangar made her tense. Whoever she was, wherever she came from, she had learned to expect cruelty. Later, as Mark walked back to his bunk, he thought about her. The station was not a kind place. People here minded their own business and cared little for strangers. If she stayed, she would be ignored at best, mocked at worst. Something told him she had already had enough of both. That night, while the station slept, Mark returned to the hangar. The girl was still there, sitting in the corner of the docking bay near the old escape pod. She had wrapped herself in the blanket and was awake, staring at the floor. Mark carried a small tray bread, fruit, and a protein bar. He set it down a few steps away. She looked at it, then at him. "Food," he said simply. He did not move closer. She studied him for a long moment before slowly crawling forward and taking the tray. She ate with careful bites, as if unsure the meal would last. Mark stayed a while, fixing a broken console nearby, speaking little. When he finally left, she was still watching him. Something in her gaze had changed. It was still guarded, but there was a faint trace of something else, a question, maybe even hope. The next day, the arguments began again. Some workers wanted her gone. Others said she might be valuable to someone willing to pay. Mark said nothing. He only kept working, but every so often his thoughts drifted back to the quiet figure in the hangar. She was alone. She was scared. And for reasons he could not explain, he felt responsible. The next few days passed quietly on the station. Ships came and went, workers argued over shifts, and engines roared in the hangar, but one corner of the docking bay stayed almost untouched. There, near the old escape pod, the alien girl remained. She moved very little, spoke even less, and kept her thin frame wrapped in the blanket Mark had left for her. Most of the workers ignored her now, though some still threw sharp glances when they passed. Mark, however, could not ignore her. Something about the way she sat, shoulders drawn in, made him think of a wounded bird. She never asked for anything, not food, not water, not help. Yet her silence was louder than any cry. It said she had given up expecting kindness. On the third day, Mark returned to the hangar with another tray of food. He set it down in the same quiet manner as before, a few steps away. The girl's bright silver-green eyes followed the movement. She waited until he stepped back before reaching for the tray. She ate quickly but neatly, careful not to spill. Mark noticed her hands still shook, but not as much as before. "Do you understand me?" he asked gently. She froze but did not look up. "Can you speak?" He waited, but no answer came. Only silence. Mark sighed, not out of anger but sadness. Words were hard to give to someone who had been hurt so deeply. He understood that. So he tried something else. He sat on the floor across from her, not too close, and took out a small scanner. Slowly, he began repairing an old piece of equipment. He talked to himself more than to her, explaining what he was doing in simple language. "This wire is broken. If I fix it, the machine will work again. See this tool? It checks the circuits." She watched him, silent but curious. It was a small thing, but her head tilted slightly when the tool lit up. Mark saw it and smiled. "You like machines?" he asked. She did not answer, but she did not look away either. Later that evening, Mark visited the station manager. "We cannot just leave her in the hangar," he said. "She is injured and scared. She needs somewhere safe." The manager shook his head. "We are not a rescue center. And you know the rules. If she is still here when the next patrol comes, they will take her off our hands." "They might hand her to the wrong people," Mark argued. "What if the ones who hurt her come looking?" The manager frowned. "Then keep her out of trouble. But do not let her interfere with work. She is your responsibility if you care so much." That was enough for Mark. He returned to the hangar the next morning with a small folding cot, a clean sheet, and a soft pillow. He set them up in a quiet corner. The girl watched him the whole time, her expression unreadable. When he finished, He stepped back and pointed. "For you," he said. She did not move at first, but when he walked away, she rose slowly and touched the pillow as if it were something rare. That night she slept curled on the cot, blanket around her, for the first time since she arrived. The days became a quiet pattern. Mark brought food and water. Sometimes he stayed to repair equipment, letting her watch. Sometimes he spoke, not expecting replies. He told small stories about the station, how engines worked, why the stars looked different here. He never asked about her past. He understood trust was fragile, and questions could break it. One afternoon, Mark brought a surprise, a small device no bigger than his hand. "This is an old translator," he explained. "It might help us talk. I fixed it up. Do you want to try?" The girl stiffened but did not run. Mark placed the device on the ground and stepped back. Slowly, she moved closer. Her fingers were thin but steady as she picked it up. The lights flickered, then steadied. She held it near her throat and hesitated. Mark spoke first, clearly and calmly. "Hello. My name is Mark." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft, trembling voice came through the device. "Aaron." It was one word, but it was enough. Mark smiled gently. "Aaron. That is your name." She gave the smallest nod. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" he asked carefully. Her hands tightened around the device. No, the voice was faint, as if unused to speaking. "Are you hungry?" A pause, then a shy, "Yes." Mark's chest tightened, not with pity but with something like pride. She had spoken. She had trusted him enough to give her name. It was a beginning. From that day, the silence between them started to soften. Aaron still spoke little, but sometimes she asked for water or food. Sometimes she pointed to tools and made small sounds of interest. She listened closely when Mark explained things, her bright eyes tracking every movement. Not everyone was pleased. Some workers muttered that Mark was wasting supplies. Others said Aaron could be dangerous. Mark ignored them. He knew what they did not. The girl was not dangerous. She was broken. And broken things needed care, not fear. One evening, as Mark was leaving the hangar, he heard her voice again, soft but clear. "Thank you." He turned, surprised, but she had already looked away. Still, the words stayed with him long after he left. Aaron had lived through cruelty. She carried it in every flinch, every silence. But a single act of kindness had opened a door. And Mark knew that behind that door was someone worth saving. Life on the mining station was rough, but routine kept people moving. Engines roared, drills cut into rock, and tired workers carried tools from one end of the station to the other. But in a quiet corner of the docking bay, something unusual was happening. A small connection was forming between two very different beings. Aaron stayed mostly silent, but she no longer sat curled against the wall. She sat straighter now, her silver-green eyes more alert. Her ankle was still sore, so she walked with care, but she was moving. The translator device that Mark had repaired rested close to her, always within reach. She did not use it often, but when she did, it carried a soft and almost fragile voice. Mark noticed the change. He came to the bay early before his shifts began and stayed late after work. Sometimes he brought her meals. Sometimes he brought small things, like a broken tool or an old circuit board, just to see her look at it with curiosity. Aaron seemed drawn to machines. When he opened up a panel to repair wiring, she would lean forward slightly, watching each move of his hands. One morning Mark carried a simple device no bigger than his palm. It was a small cleaning bot, old and rusted. "This one does not work," he told her. "Do you want to see how to fix it?" Aaron hesitated but nodded. Mark sat on the floor, laying the bot between them. He opened it with his screwdriver and explained every part in simple words. This is the motor. These wires bring power. This part is broken. We will change it. He moved slowly, giving her time to see. To his quiet surprise, she reached forward. Her thin fingers touched the loose wire. She looked at him as if asking for permission. Go ahead, he said softly. She worked carefully. Her hands were steady despite her cautious movements. She handed him each piece as if it were fragile. By the end of the session, the bot's small lights blinked on. It rolled forward, making a soft hum. Aaron's lips moved, and the translator carried a single word. Good. Mark smiled. Very good. You helped. Machines like it when someone cares for them. She tilted her head, almost confused, but the smallest flicker of a smile crossed her face. It was the first time Mark had seen it, and it stayed with him long after the bot had gone back to work. The days began to change after that. Aaron started eating more, her movements more sure. She spoke a little each day. At first, it was only single words: water, warm, help, but soon she asked small questions. Why do you fix things? Why are the walls loud? What is that light? Mark answered every question patiently. I fix things because broken things should work again. The walls shake because the drills are cutting rock. That light means the engines are running. Aaron listened closely, her bright eyes following his every gesture. Each time she spoke, her voice grew a little stronger. Mark learned she had lived on a world far from here, a small planet used by raiders for hidden camps. She never described much, but her short words told enough. She had lost family. She had run. She had hidden. The pod that brought her here was not meant for long travel. It was meant for escape. Mark never pushed for more. He knew trust was built slowly, like repairing a fragile circuit. Push too hard and it would break. Instead, he gave her space, always letting her choose when to speak. One evening, while most workers were asleep, Mark found her standing by the hangar doors. She was staring at the stars through the thick glass panels. The station's lights cast a soft glow around her small frame. They are beautiful, she said through the translator. They are, Mark agreed. He stood beside her but kept some distance. Do you miss your home? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, yes. But it is gone. Mark said nothing. He only stood there, looking at the endless stars with her. As the days passed, the other workers began to notice. Some muttered about the extra food, some said she should be turned over to the patrol. Mark ignored them. He saw something they could not see. Each day Aaron's eyes carried a little less fear. Each day her voice grew steadier. One afternoon, she surprised him. He was fixing a coolant pump when she limped over and crouched beside him. Teach me, she said. Mark blinked, then smiled. All right. Watch first, then try. They spent hours by the pump. He showed her the tools and let her hold them. She copied his movements slowly but carefully. Her hands moved with natural precision. When the pump finally started humming again, she touched the metal with a soft sound of wonder. Machines are like people, Mark said. They need care. Aaron looked at him, her face serious. People do not care. Some do, he said simply. Some always will. For the first time, she did not look away. Her gaze held his as if testing the truth of his words. Then she nodded slightly and turned back to the machine. That night, as Mark left the bay, he heard her voice behind him. Good night, Mark. He stopped, startled but pleased. Good night, Aaron, he said. It was a small thing, just a few words. But for someone who had arrived silent and broken, it meant the world. The first thread of trust had been tied, and with it came a quiet promise. The days on the mining station passed with the same heavy rhythm of engines and drills, but something new was growing quietly in one corner of the docking bay. Erin was no longer just a silent shadow. She was learning, moving, and even speaking in short sentences now. It was slow, but every step forward felt like a small victory. Mark saw the change each day. She walked with less hesitation, though her ankle was still healing. She ate more, and her thin frame started to look stronger. She no longer stayed curled up against the wall but moved around the hangar, always careful not to get in anyone's way. When Mark worked on repairs, she came to watch. Sometimes she even asked to help. It started with small things. Mark would hand her a wrench, and she would hold it steady while he tightened bolts. When a panel needed to be cleaned before sealing, she wiped it down carefully. She was quiet, but her focus was sharp. It reminded Mark of someone rebuilding themselves piece by piece. One morning, Mark brought her to a quieter part of the station, away from the heavy noise of drills. It was an old storage room filled with broken machines and spare parts. "No one uses this room much," he said. "You can practice here." Erin looked around, her silver-green eyes wide. There were wires, panels, and half-finished devices stacked in bins. She moved slowly among them, touching things as if they were fragile. Mark handed her a small tool and a piece of scrap metal. "Try to join these wires. I will watch." Her fingers worked carefully, but she was quick to understand. She bent the wires, checked the connections, and even adjusted her work without being told. Mark was impressed. "You learn fast," he said. Through the translator, her voice came soft but steady. "Machines do not hurt. They only work or stop working." Mark nodded. "That is true. They are honest. But people can care too." She tilted her head as if thinking about it. As the days passed, the storage room became a place where she practiced. Mark left small challenges for her, simple circuits to fix, broken gadgets to restore. Each time she completed one, her quiet pride showed in the way she held the finished piece. She did not smile often, but her posture grew straighter. One evening, the station lights flickered during a sudden power dip. Workers grumbled, but Mark hurried to check the systems. The coolant flow was unstable, and a pump was overheating. Before he could grab his tools, Erin appeared at his side. "Where is the leak?" she asked through the translator. Mark blinked. "You want to help?" She nodded firmly. He pointed to the lines on the monitor. "This valve. It is blocked. Follow me." Together they moved quickly. The sound of pressure vents hissed around them, but Erin stayed calm. She handed him tools before he asked for them, remembered steps he had shown her days before, and even spotted a loose wire before he did. Within minutes, the pump was stable again. Mark wiped his hands and looked at her. "You were great. You may have saved the system." For the first time, Erin's lips curved in something close to a smile. "I like to fix," she said. That night, while most of the station slept, Erin sat by the hangar window, watching the stars. Mark joined her with 2 cups of warm tea. He offered one, and she accepted it without fear. "Why are you helping me?" she asked suddenly. Mark sipped his tea. "Because someone should. Because you deserve better than what happened to you." Erin was quiet. She looked down at her cup, then back at the stars. "Others did not think so." "They were wrong," Mark said simply. "You are not a burden. You are learning, growing. You are more than they know." She said nothing, but the way her fingers tightened slightly around the cup told him the words mattered. In the days that followed, Erin started to change more. She still spoke little, but she no longer looked away when someone addressed her. When Mark praised her work, a faint light came to her eyes. She moved around the station more confidently, even helping with small tasks when no one else was around. But not everyone liked it. Some workers complained to the station manager, saying Aaron was taking up space, using supplies, and might bring trouble. Mark heard their voices but ignored them. Still, he knew they were watching. One afternoon, Aaron overheard part of an argument. A worker was saying they should hand her to the next patrol ship. "We do not need some stray alien slowing us down," the man said. Aaron froze, then stepped back quietly. She returned to her corner, silent. When Mark found her later, she was sitting stiffly, eyes distant. "You heard them, didn't you?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then nodded. "Do not listen to them," he said. "They do not know you. They do not know what you can do." She looked at him, voice low. "They will send me away." Mark knelt in front of her. "Not if I can help it. You are not alone anymore." For the first time, her eyes held his steadily. There was fear, but there was also something new, a small but growing trust. That night, she returned to the storage room and worked until the lights dimmed. She repaired 3 circuits without being asked. Mark found her sitting there, tired but calm. "Why are you working so late?" he asked. She answered with quiet certainty. "If I am useful, they will not send me away." Mark felt a mix of pride and sadness. He wanted to tell her she did not need to earn her place, but he also knew her determination was part of her healing. As they locked the room and walked back, Aaron spoke again, her voice steady. "I will not be afraid forever." Mark looked at her and smiled. "No. You will not." Something had shifted. The girl who once flinched at every sound was now learning to stand. Each broken piece was finding its place. And somewhere deep inside, a spark of hope had started to burn. The station was calm on the surface, but underneath, tension was building. For weeks Aaron had slowly grown stronger. She could walk almost without a limp now. She could fix simple machines on her own. She even spoke more, though her voice was still soft. Mark was proud of her progress. He could see a quiet strength forming where there once was only fear. But some things were beyond their control. One morning, an alert sounded through the station. The loud, steady tone echoed through the metal halls. Workers paused, confused. Mark was in the storage room with Aaron, showing her how to test an engine coil. At the sound, he looked up sharply. "That is not a drill," he said. Aaron stiffened. "What is it?" Mark grabbed a small monitor from the shelf. A warning message flashed, "Unidentified ship approaching." They moved quickly to the hangar where others had gathered. On the main screen, a dark shape glided closer. Its hull was sharp and marked with symbols no one liked to see. A mining worker cursed under his breath. "Pirates. It has to be." The room buzzed with unease. The station manager came over the comms. "All crews prepare for lockdown. Unknown ship requesting dock. Stay alert." Aaron stood still, her eyes locked on the screen. The color drained from her face. Mark noticed and stepped closer. "You know that ship?" Her voice trembled. "Yes. They own the pod." The words hit like a weight. These were the ones she had escaped. Mark's jaw tightened. "Listen to me. They are not getting you back." She looked at him, fear clear in her bright eyes. "They will take me. They always do." "No," Mark said firmly. "Not this time." The pirate ship hailed the station, its voice coming through the speakers. A rough, cold tone spoke. "This is the crew of the Vrax Talon. We are searching for stolen property. Hand it over, and we will leave you unharmed." Stolen property. That was how they saw her. The workers looked uneasy. Some whispered, "We should give them what they want. We cannot fight them." Another said, "It is not worth the risk." Mark stepped forward. "She is not property." She is a person. But fear was growing. A few workers argued loudly with the manager. We are not soldiers, one said. If they fire on us, we are done. They will kill us all for a girl who is not even human. Erin heard every word. She shrank back, her blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders. She whispered to herself, I will leave. I will hide. They will not be hurt because of me. Mark turned to her. Do not say that. You are not leaving alone. We will figure this out. The manager made the announcement. Crew, stay inside. Lock all doors. Do not engage. We will negotiate. But Mark knew what negotiation meant. Pirates did not come to talk. When the ship docked, the sound of the metal clamps echoed through the station. The workers fell silent. The air felt heavy. The doors stayed locked, but everyone knew the risk. Mark guided Erin to the storage room. Stay here. Do not open the door for anyone but me. She grabbed his sleeve, her voice low. They are dangerous. Do not fight them. Mark met her gaze. I fix things. And I protect what I care about. I will not let them hurt you. She hesitated, then whispered, they will hurt you for helping me. Mark smiled faintly. Then let them try. He left her there and moved to the hangar where a few brave workers stood ready. They had welding torches, cutters, anything that could be used as a weapon. They were miners, not fighters, but they were not willing to watch strangers take someone they had seen grow day by day. The first pirates came in fast. They were tall and armored, their helmets hiding their faces. They carried stun rifles. The leader stepped forward, his voice cold through the comm. You have something that belongs to us. Give her to us now. The manager tried to stand firm. We do not have what you are looking for. The leader stepped closer. Do not lie. We tracked the pod here. We will search every corner. If you resist, we will take what we want. Mark felt his hand tighten around the wrench he carried. He was not a soldier, but something in him burned at the thought of Erin being dragged back to that ship. He thought of her sitting quietly, learning, smiling for the first time. He thought of the fear that still haunted her voice. When the pirate raised his weapon, Mark moved without thinking. Stop, he said, stepping forward. His voice carried across the hangar. She is not yours. She is under our protection. The pirate's helmet turned toward him. A human engineer? You will stand in our way. Yes, Mark said simply. For a moment there was silence. Then the pirate signaled, and his crew started forward. The workers scattered, some running, some standing firm. The hangar became a blur of movement. The alarms blared louder, echoing through the metal walls. Back in the storage room, Erin could hear everything. The sound of boots, the shouts, the metallic clash. Her hands shook, but she forced herself to breathe. She closed her eyes and remembered Mark's words, you are not alone anymore. The hangar was filled with noise. Boots struck the floor, alarms blared, and the voices of workers and pirates echoed off the walls. The station, usually loud with engines and drills, now carried a different kind of sound. It was the sound of fear and defiance. Mark stood in the middle of it. A simple wrench was in his hand, but his stance was steady. He was no soldier, but something inside him refused to step aside. The pirates were larger, stronger, and armed, but he thought of Erin, how she looked when she first arrived, silent and broken, and how she had begun to heal. He would not let them take that away. The pirate leader's helmet reflected the harsh lights of the hangar. His voice was cold and sharp. You will move. Give her to us, and no one is harmed. Mark's answer was calm but firm. She is not your property. She is not going anywhere. The leader tilted his head as if studying him. A human engineer standing against trained fighters. Brave but foolish. Mark tightened his grip. Maybe. But you will have to go through me. The leader raised his hand, and two pirates stepped forward. They carried stun rifles. The workers who had gathered backed away, unsure. Some clutched tools like weapons. Others wanted to run. The manager shouted from behind a console, "Stay back, all of you. Lock the side doors." The pirates moved closer. Mark's heart was beating fast, but his mind stayed clear. He had seen broken machines work again with the right care. He had seen Aaron grow from silence to trust. He believed that courage worked the same way. The first pirate lunged. Mark stepped aside, swinging his wrench. It struck the weapon, knocking it off aim. Sparks flew. The second pirate fired, but the shot hit a crate. Workers shouted and scattered. The fight was uneven. Mark ducked behind equipment, using the space to keep distance. The pirates were strong, but they did not know the layout of the station like he did. He used the clutter to his advantage, striking and moving, never staying in one place. Still, he could not hold them off forever. Far away, in the quiet storage room, Aaron heard it all. The sound of running, the echo of voices, and the sharp thud of metal on metal. She stood frozen at first, hands trembling. Fear pushed at her, the old fear that had followed her for so long. She whispered to herself, "Stay. Stay hidden." But Mark's voice echoed in her memory. "You are not alone anymore." She looked at the small panel on the wall. She had learned the systems. She had followed Mark's lessons carefully. Her fingers moved quickly, pulling wires and rerouting power. Lights flickered across the station as she accessed the side cameras. She saw the pirates in the hangar, moving toward Mark and the others. She saw the weapons. She saw the danger. Aaron's fear began to change. It did not disappear, but it shifted into something else. A quiet anger. She picked up the translator device and a small toolkit. She limped out of the storage room, her steps quick but quiet. Meanwhile, the hangar was chaos. The pirates were forcing the workers back. Mark blocked a strike with his wrench, but the weight of the blow sent pain up his arm. A pirate grabbed a worker by the collar, demanding to know where Aaron was. "She is not here," the worker lied. "We do not know who you are talking about." The pirate shoved him aside. "We will search the whole station." Mark's chest tightened. He knew they would not stop. Then, over the loudspeaker, a voice broke through. It was soft but steady. "Stop." The sound froze everyone. It was Aaron. She was in the control booth above the hangar, the translator amplifying her words. Her silver-green eyes looked down through the glass. Her thin frame was still wrapped in a blanket, but she stood tall. "You will leave this place," she said. The pirate leader laughed. "You think you can command us? You are nothing. You belong to us." Aaron's voice grew stronger. "Not anymore. This is my choice. And you will not take me." As she spoke, lights around the hangar shifted. Mark realized she had rerouted power. Panels sparked, doors sealed, and the overhead cranes hummed to life. She had learned more than anyone guessed. The cranes moved suddenly, swinging heavy crates. The pirates dodged, but it slowed them. Aaron triggered the station's alarm systems, disorienting them with sound. She opened vents, releasing steam that clouded the air. Mark saw his chance. "Move," he shouted to the workers. "Now." Together they pushed forward. Tools became weapons. The pirates were trained, but they were not prepared for a swarm of angry miners and a station that seemed to fight them. Aaron kept her focus. She locked doors to trap pirates in sections of the hangar. She sent short messages through the speakers. "Left side blocked. Valve 3 open. Watch above." Her voice was steady, guiding them like a quiet commander. The leader growled into his "Find her. Stop that voice." But she was not afraid anymore. When one pirate tried to climb toward the control booth, a wrench flew through the air. Mark had followed the sound of her voice, climbing fast. He met the pirate halfway, striking hard. The pirate fell back, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Finally, the alarms shifted again. A sharp tone cut through the air. The manager called out, "Security drone launch. Patrol ship inbound." The pirates looked at each other. Reinforcements were coming. Their leader cursed and signaled retreat. "We will be back. She is ours." "No," Mark said from above. "She never was." The pirates backed away, weapons raised, but the workers kept pressure on them. Within minutes, they were gone, running back to their ship. The docking clamps released, and the dark vessel pulled away into the stars. The hangar was quiet at last. Smoke and steam hung in the air. Workers leaned against walls, breathing hard. In the control booth, Aaron stood still, hands shaking but steadying slowly. Mark climbed up to her, sweat on his face and a wrench still in his hand. "You did it," he said. Aaron looked at him, her eyes bright. "We did it." She swayed slightly, exhausted. Mark caught her arm to steady her. "Come on. Let's get you out of here." As they walked back through the station, the workers watched. Some looked at Aaron differently now. She was not just a silent stranger anymore. She was the girl who had stood up, who had fought back. The station was quiet now. The alarms had stopped, the smoke had cleared, and the pirates were long gone. But the memory of what happened stayed with everyone. People walked slower that day, speaking in low voices. They were tired, but there was something new in their eyes. They had seen danger and fear, but they had also seen courage. Aaron sat in the medical room, her blanket around her shoulders. She watched the small scanner check her arm. The medic smiled gently and said she was fine, only a few bruises. Her leg was healing well. The translator rested on the bed beside her. It was no longer just a tool to speak. It was a part of her now, something that gave her voice when she once had none. Mark walked in, his clothes still stained with grease and dust. He looked tired but his face carried a small smile. "How are you feeling?" he asked. Aaron turned her head and met his eyes. "Better," she said through the translator. Her voice was calm. "Are you hurt?" "Just sore," he replied. "You were amazing out there. You saved everyone." Aaron lowered her gaze for a moment. "I was afraid," she admitted. "Everyone is," Mark said. "Courage is not about being fearless. It is about doing something even when you are afraid. And you did more than anyone expected." She thought about that and nodded slowly. There was still a small tremor in her hands, but she felt stronger than before. The station manager entered, carrying a data pad. He looked at both of them. "Security confirmed the pirates left the sector. Patrol ships will watch the routes for a while. You gave us quite a fight to remember." Mark shrugged. "It was not planned." The manager gave a short laugh. "Sometimes the best victories are not planned." "And about you," he said, turning to Aaron, "you are safe here. No one will touch you again. If you wish to stay, this station will be your home." Aaron looked surprised. "Home," she said softly, as if testing the word. "Yes," the manager said. "Home. Work, friends, safety. All yours if you want them." Aaron's eyes softened. She thought about the first day she arrived, frightened and silent, hiding in corners. And now she was being offered a home. She looked at Mark. He gave her a small nod, as if saying the choice was hers. "I will stay," she said finally. Her voice was steady. The manager smiled and left, his datapad clicking as he wrote something. When they were alone, Mark leaned against the wall. "You know, you did more than fight back. You led us. You showed them you are not afraid anymore." Aaron looked at him with quiet curiosity. "Because of you," she said. "You taught me. You stayed." Mark shook his head. "No. You found your own strength. I only reminded you that it was there." They sat in silence for a while. It was a warm silence, the kind that spoke of trust. Days passed, and the station returned to normal. The clang of tools and the hum of engines filled the air again. But something had changed. People greeted Erin when she passed. Some gave her small gifts, like a piece of fruit or a carved charm. They did not see her as a stranger anymore. She was part of them now. Mark taught her more about machines. Together they repaired engines, sealed broken panels, and checked the systems. Erin learned quickly. Her fingers were quick and precise. Sometimes she surprised even Mark with her solutions. She spoke more each day, her words becoming clearer. She asked questions, laughed at small things, and sometimes even told short stories of her world. But not all memories were light. At night she sometimes woke with fear, hearing the echo of heavy boots or harsh voices. When that happened, she would walk to the workshop. Mark would often be there, half asleep over a console. He would look up and say, "Could not sleep," and she would shake her head. Then they would work on something small until the fear passed. One evening, weeks later, a message came to the station. It was from a patrol ship. They had intercepted signals from the pirate group. The message said the pirates were moving far away, out of known lanes. There was no sign they would return. When the manager shared this news, the workers cheered. Some even clapped Erin on the back gently. The fear that once hung over them was gone. Later, Mark found Erin on the observation deck. She was standing by the window, looking at the stars. Her blanket was gone. She stood tall and calm. "They will not come back," she said without turning. "No," Mark agreed. "They learned something that day. They learned we are not weak." Erin smiled slightly. "We," she repeated. Mark came to stand beside her. "Yes. We. You are one of us now." She turned to him. "Thank you. For everything." "You do not have to thank me," he said. "Friends do not count debts." Her eyes glowed faintly in the starlight. "Friends," she said softly. They stood together, watching the endless stretch of stars. The silence was not empty. It was full of meaning. And so life moved forward. Erin took a place among the workers. She repaired machines, learned new things, and taught some of her own. Mark and she worked side by side, sometimes in silence, sometimes laughing. The past was still there, but it no longer owned her. When ships came and went, traders sometimes asked about the quiet alien girl who spoke with calm and worked with steady hands. The workers would smile and say, "She is one of ours."